I want to make sure Peter has enough time to teach us everything that he's going to teach us today. But first, I want to start by thanking everyone for trusting us with your time, with your next 30 to 35 minutes. I appreciate you choosing to be here and choosing to spend this time of your day with us. And I also want to thank Peter for being so kind, for saying yes to join our workshop, bite-sized workshop from Latinos in Success. This community has been providing resources and workshops and more for the Latino community and allies since last year, almost 1 year anniversary very soon. So I'm very excited, very grateful that you're here, Peter. I would love if you could start by introducing yourself and sharing a bit more about yourself before we dive into the mastering customer success section that you have for us today. I am recording these sections, so I will put this on YouTube later on if you miss part of it or anything. If you do have questions, please put in the chat. We'll chat after the section. We can address the questions, and whatever we don't have time to, Peter and we can get back to you all. So yeah, the floor is yours, Peter. Thank you again for doing this. I will be here managing the chat. Let me know if you have questions or need anything.
Okay. Thanks, Priscilla. And yeah, we only have 30 minutes. So I like the title of this podcast or webinar, actually, bite size, because that's exactly what it's going to be. It's a big topic, of course. And you can see on the screen, really, my background is pretty much summarized there. Obviously, like all of you, there's a lot more detail. But I think this does a fair job of summarizing a long career, much of it in the last 20 years in customer success. And before I forget, I do want to actually reiterate and provide my thanks to all of you too for choosing to spend your time in this next 30 minutes. I think it's, there's a lot of options that you have to spend your time, and I appreciate that you chose to do this. And I think it's a testimony to Priscilla and this on our annual anniversary of this webinar. So keep it going, Priscilla. So yeah, I'm working at ValueWise Consulting at this time. They are a small consulting boutique consulting firm based in Vancouver with resources spread around North America. And the mission of the company is to really help enterprise companies optimize and make more efficient and effective the way they manage the customer's life cycle, which includes obviously any effort by customer success. So it's a big, broad mission. Got smart people in the organization who really understand how to consult with senior leaders and help them understand how they should be working more collaboratively with different organizations. So you can see on the screen, obviously the book. This 30 minutes is not about the book so much. I mean, the content speaks to the theme of the book, some details of the book, but I'm not here to sell the book. That's not who I am. I just want to sell ideas for how you can really be more effective in your role in customer success, whatever that role might be. And I would say more broadly, even if you're not in customer success and you chose to be on this call, there are lessons to be learned from this 30 minutes, but also from the book, more generally speaking. If you don't have the book, I think I could just say, it's not a playbook. It's not meant to be an instructional manual. It's not meant to be it's more meant to be a guide for people who really want to tie the effort that they're asked to do to work with clients with the strategy of the company, of your employer. And trying to put in play the large strategy that executives come up with on an annual basis and put it into action to drive successful outcomes with your clients, so that hopefully they will appreciate that and they achieve their outcomes and stay with you over the long term, over multiple renewal cycles. So I'm just going to get rid of this thumbnail. Oops, I didn't mean to go that far. So, I think a lot of this stuff is not new to you. I think if you're in customer success, you understand that there are certain kind of capabilities or characteristics within customer success that you should be either excellent at or trying to work towards becoming excellent at. And those are obviously things like communication skills. How do you kind of figure out to be inherently empathetic with your clients so that, and it's not just meant to be like a one-to-one empathy, talking to clients. It's more around how do you and this is what the book kind of elaborates on, is how do you design your processes to be empathetic? How can you infuse the regular kind of procedural work that your organization does so that it feels to the customer that they're working with a vendor who empathizes with them and has the right kind of means and processes in place to drive them towards where they want to go. And we talk a lot these days in customer success, and it's been more heightened in the last couple of years around the need to really become domain experts. So that's what really I'm talking about in that second bullet point. Deep product and industry knowledge is becoming more and more indispensable. And the more you're embraced, let's say, or taken over by automation and even AI, that need for you to become more industry savvy, more business aware, that's where your value proposition will be, so that you can differentiate yourself from the automation. And I think that's one of the things I'd like you to take away from this 30 minutes. Understanding customer goals, desired outcomes, that's kind of it's just a given today that that's like square one. Customer success will always fail if they don't understand what the customer wants to do. And so before you even engage, you have to do your research, understand what their goals are, and start mapping your effort towards helping them achieve those goals. Success plans are an instrument for making that happen. I don't understand why any customer success organization would not have success plans that align with their customers' objectives. That, for me, is one of the kind of core fundamental elements of a proper customer success practice. And then what brings it all together really is an appreciation and a confession that you can't do this all alone. In companies, you have to have internal partnerships because customer success cannot do this job of helping customers achieve their success on their own. And so it's imperative that customer success figure out how to establish really positive collaborative partnerships with other organizations. And this is more a call out to leaders. I think in our LinkedIn community, too often we're shaming CSMs for the fact that maybe they're weak at that. I don't have an expectation of CSMs to be fantastic at that. I expect that of leaders. So in the book, Jeff and I actually call that out quite a bit, that a lot of what we say is meant to be targeting leaders for the need for them to step up and make sure these sorts of things happen. So in the book, especially, well, the way I write, we split up the book 5 chapters each. And I think it's the first chapter. I just launched right away the book with data-driven customer success strategies. Because for me, in the last 20, 30 years, I feel like I've grounded much of my career in the belief that if you really want to work well with customers and help them to be as successful as they could be, you have to understand their business through their behaviors, through the way they're using the product. So for me, data has always been a big, massive curiosity, and I've been unafraid to collect data, look at data, try and figure out patterns. And this is before really understanding how to use AI. When I went to Oracle, AI is a big thing there at Oracle. I spent 6 years there, and so honed that kind of mentality and mindset. And so I try to communicate that to other companies and people when I'm mentoring people, that really to establish the best sort of strategies for your customers, you really have to kind of dive into the data. And so you can see on the screen some of the ways for doing that. I don't think there's any excuse anymore for avoiding this. I think you cannot, in this day and age, believe that you can rely on your personality to help customers be successful. Customers are moving very fast. They've got a lot of competing priorities. You're just one of those things. And so if you can't come to them with a data-driven message or a data-driven story, you're not going to get their attention for very long, no matter how wonderful you might be as a person. So the way to start doing that, I think, is you really have to understand their journey. I mentioned about us, appreciating the goals that they're trying to pursue, but you need to figure out the journey for them, and that obviously starts with the beginning of onboarding and making sure that that goes well, and trying to map out with them and for them what the journey is going to look like for them as they progress towards their goals. And I'm a big believer in transparency, and so I like customer journey mapping sessions that include the customer. You get opposition on that sometimes, but I think that's the most enriching kind of outcome, is when customers are included in the development of what the journey is going to look like, because they'll provide feedback and it'll probably tweak the ultimate kind of design so that it's more relevant for them and more pertinent to their needs. And so as the journey progresses, obviously the goal is not just to help them achieve their outcomes. That's the number one goal, of course, because that's why you need to satisfy their need to get ROI from their investment. But for you as a vendor, you want to be able to kind of reap some benefits too, and that would be making sure that they're comfortable being referenceable customers and ultimately advocates for you, even when they're not even asked. So the best kind of advocates are those who speak about you in a positive way without you hounding them about that. And so that should be kind of the North Star, actually, for customer success, is trying to drive that sort of authentic advocacy. And there's no way around the fact that through the journey, there's going to be moments of friction. There's going to be moments of problems where the customer's unhappy with progress. And so a key aspect of customer success will always be, how do you figure out how to manage crises? So that's an indispensable kind of skill you need to have. And the last bullet, focusing on expansion and retention, those are just things that should always be front of mind, but almost unspoken of, because the work you're doing should lead to those two events. As much of an automatic renewal as possible, because they see the value, they've realized the value, they're going to renew, and they'll be amenable to expansion conversations. So I mentioned to Priscilla that I thought this slide I'd spend the most time on. And the reason I say that is I presented this deck a few times now. And it's always got good feedback, a good interaction with people in the audience and stuff. But I've tweaked this a little bit, and the only reason I did that is because things are happening so rapidly now. Jeff and I wrote the book. We started writing it in like November of 2023, so a year and a half ago, and we took us 6 months to write the book. So it was published at the end of May of 2024. Lots has changed, obviously. The book is still, I believe, super relevant, but so much has changed because of AI in the last 6 months, even in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, with DeepSeek being released. And I guess when I think about the future of customer success, I feel like no one can predict exactly how things are going to play out. And so I think what we can believe will take place is over the next couple of years, there's going to be more churn of employment. There's been a tremendous impact in this profession of companies laying people off, taking a long time to hire. And I think the truth of the matter is that a lot of companies don't know, they don't want to pull the trigger on hiring because they don't know what the future is going to look like. And in their defense, I think nobody can. And so it's really challenging to say, customer success is going to continue looking like it has in the last 5 years. I don't believe that's true. I think AI is going to continue to make inroads. And I think if you're a CSM in a role, that role is going to change significantly in the next 6 to 12 months. So how do you protect yourself? How do you ensure that if you love being in the customer success profession, how do you ensure that you'll be part of the future? I think what you need to do is focus again on the fundamentals of what that first slide talked about: empathy, communications. I think those are the things that AI will struggle with for a long time, because what we're talking about with those fundamentals are human characteristics that are really hard to replicate. And so if you can think of being in your role, refining your ability not just to communicate with customers, but to communicate with your peers, and especially with your leadership team, and be part of the development of the company, I think that's where you'll be seen as more and more indispensable. And so how do you do that is to always be learning. I think there's so much opportunity these days to learn things that are new, and don't wait for your management team to prescribe any sort of education for you. I think you obviously have to pay attention to it, but I think that's only going to be a small portion of the learning that you'll need to do. So I recommend to people, just be really open-minded. If you think that there's some sort of path that's more leaning towards AI and you think that might be part of the future, by all means, try and learn about that. And at the very least, I think it'll allow you to be seen a little differently. And I think that's what you want. Leaders are always looking for people who they can think about leaning on going into the future. And so if you're an individual contributor, you should try to position yourself as someone who can add value to conversations, to the business. And so to rise above just doing tasks, in other words. So learn from, the work you're doing with your clients, but try to provide insights that you can communicate back to the team and back to your leadership team so that they start, um, you know, distilling that information and putting it back into the processes and stuff. And I think that's where you'll get a lot of gratification in an environment where AI is going to continue to be super disruptive. I don't want to end on kind of a bleak note, because I think it's very possible that AI will totally transform our business world so that as individuals we'll be freed up to do more interesting work. But I think in the meantime, as that's happening, it's going to be very disruptive. And the people who will do well will be the ones that can see around corners, learn for themselves, and be able to share with others so that you'll be seen kind of as really kind of someone they want on the team. And I hope that's, I'm just trying to summarize a future that's very fuzzy right now. I think 10 years ago was a lot easier to predict 5 years ahead. You can't even predict a year from now. So I hope this slide provides some sort of clues from my point of view. I've been in business an awful long time, and all I'm trying to do right now is share a little bit of wisdom. So Priscilla, I know we got 10 minutes left. I think there might be some questions I should probably entertain.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. I'm sure people here also have a lot of questions. Let me just start by asking you, like, I know you mentioned like critical skills for CSMs right now. If you're a manager, a new manager or a customer success manager, but you're leading a team, what are some of the skills that you're looking for when you're hiring? What are you seeing in the industry based on some of these changes that you just mentioned, the AI? What do you think CSMs should be looking for to stand out in the crowd?
Yeah, I love that question because it speaks to the heart of kind of a modern capability that needs to be refined, which is to say, I think, if I'm a leader or manager or director and I've been trying to interview someone, what I'd like to see from them is the ability to kind of think in a modern way. So what I mean by that is everyone should just know that AI is part of our world now. And how are you going to leverage it? And so if you want to be hired on by this company, hopefully you've done a little bit of research, what they're doing in business, what they're trying to do, who are their clients, and that sort of thing. And come with some ideas for how in your customer success role, you could kind of connect the dots for them on how, rote tasks could be made more efficient, made more optimized. So I think leaders are always looking for ways to cut costs these days. And what they're looking for with new people is, can this person help me achieve that mission, which is to run a more lean organization, to drive more successful outcomes, and so that I can turn around and tell my leadership, I had this budget. We did better than last year with the same amount of people, because I think that's the reality too. In an AI world, you're not going to get expanded kind of headcount. And so the goals will rise. So the number of goals will rise, the revenue might expand, but you're still going to be required as a leader to still, achieve those outcomes without expanded kind of headcount budget. So if I'm a CSM again and I'm interviewing, I'd want to be able to offer them a glimpse into the way I think, some way that they could look at me and say, okay, this person thinks in the right way. They got the right mindset. They're not just telling me what they did over the last 5 years, but if they are telling me that, they're telling me what they learned that they could bring to the table as a way to help me achieve my goals, which are, again, process optimization, reduce cost, and that sort of thing. So again, we're not talking about being hired just because you are part of a book of business that expanded 20%, 30%. While that might be impressive, that doesn't answer the questions in the leader's mind, the interviewer's mind. How are you going to help them achieve their goals, which these days, again, are all around optimization, reducing cost, while achieving greater results for the company and the clients.
Oh, that makes sense. I want to touch a little bit on the success plan. I know this is like a roadblock for a lot of people. I've had it mostly like implementing, getting the leadership, getting the customers to adopt. What are you seeing and how do you see this working? Is that a specific format that you see that, or a specific tool, or even like with AI? How are like companies really making sure that success plans are sticking and customers and leadership teams are adopting it?
Yeah, the best success plans I've seen and I've experienced and have experience with are those that where the customer had a stake in it, meaning that they were part of the development of it. And that might lengthen the process, but what ends up happening is the customer believes in it. They feel they were part of the vetting of the details. And additionally, it can't be overly complicated. I think simpler is better because on a week-to-week basis, you can see the large rocks that need to be kind of continue to be pursued and milestones that are included along the way. So I guess my recommendation is simpler is better than complicated. And for me, having the customer as part of the development of it is like a non-negotiable. The best ones I've seen are where the customer's part of that. And just be aware that it does lengthen the process a little bit, but it strengthens the relationship or has the opportunity to do that. So I've always argued against, well, trying to be diplomatic about it with clients who insist on doing it without the customer's input and they'd rather impose a success plan. I've always cautioned that the likelihood of that being successful is lower, is much lower because it's going to force you to be always persuading and convincing and educating them when if you'd done all that up front, you'd have a much higher rate of success.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. We have a question here from Doug. Doug, do you want to come off mute or do you want me to read it? If you can't, I can read it. So, cross-functional collaboration is important for a CS team. What internal departments do you think CS must align with in order to grow revenue and drive value? Sales and marketing come to mind. What else?
Products is for me way up there. And I say that from experience. I've worked in organizations that have worked as part of sales, reporting into sales, but also reporting into services. But I think my favorite was when I reported the team reported into product. And I say that because it just changed the complexion of the work we did. We got much closer to what the goals of the company were, like my employer, because they were reflected in the product's design, and then our ability to be connected hip to hip to the products teams meant that we had much closer kind of synergies and communications, and they were very, very interested in working with us to figure out how are the clients using the products? What are your opinions on how things can improve and all that? So it's much, much richer experience for us as customer success, but also I believe for the clients, because in the end, they were aware we were part of the product organization. And that really appealed to a lot of the clients because they felt we were probably had more impact on the vendor side. So I say, just to summarize, Priscilla, I say that the important organizations to be connected with and collaborate with are those ones you mentioned. But I would also for sure say product and definitely support. You know, customer success like has this love-hate relationship with support because we don't want to be seen as support people. But from an industry point of view and from the client point of view, you are. And it's best if you're close to the support organization so you can kind of share with them observations and information and data so that they can improve the way they do their work and vice versa. The customer support can provide customer success with really good insights, larger patterns that are happening with cohorts that you can start using to improve the way you run your processes and customer success.
Thank you. Amelia, you have a question?
Yes. Hi, Peter. Just want to expand a bit on working closely with product and any recommendations you may have on how to handle gaps. I've worked at organizations in the past where they did a lot of future selling. And so when CS would receive the client, there was a, a visible gap between product capabilities and the needs of the customer, and it indirectly would start the customer journey kind of on the wrong foot. And so keeping in mind leadership conversations and internal team conversations, just want to catch your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think that's fairly common scenario that you painted, Amelia. I would say that in these kinds of situations, the imperative is for customer success leadership to develop really good skills around presenting arguments to product leadership on the need for transparency, on the need for more accurate information, and to really expose to them what the business disadvantages are for you as a company if you're going to present in the market inaccurate information or it's too future oriented. What happens from the customer's point of view? I'm a big customer experience kind of thinker, and I always put myself in the customer's shoes. If I'm hearing that kind of information, for me, it affects the way I view the vendor, and they start slipping down quite a bit in esteem. And ultimately, you can say their brand gets affected. And that's, if I was a CS leader, that's how I would characterize it, is inaccurate information presented to clients that doesn't actually play out the way you say it's going to play out. It erodes the brand over time. And that word brand really resonates in a big way with senior executives. And so if you can kind of just present it in a kind of business language sort of view and share examples of that, then I think that can be very persuasive.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. Feel free to come off mute if you have more questions or if you want to type in. I can also read it. Let's take advantage. I know we're 1 minute past, but if you have a little more time, Peter.
I have time. Happy to help.
I have a question. It's along these same lines, and I know everybody struggles with kind of the same things, but it's, I try to tell everybody, and I have for a couple of years, we're a very small company. CS is a team sport. It's not just the responsibility of my team and I. Everybody needs to care about this and think differently. And unfortunately, old leadership, they just wanted to build whatever they thought makes sense in the way that it made sense, and it's caused problems. We have new leadership. He's very open. We're able to have new solutions we never had before, but it's still coming to not really listening to voice of customer and the things that they need. So it's, yes, we're giving you the things you've been begging for a while, but they're still being built by product in many ways, the way that they think or the things that they want to work on, instead of like exactly what the customer is saying is important to them. And so we've had a couple conversations with the head of product, a smaller team, just myself, head of implementation, and one of my sales contacts to say, why is it being prioritized this way? So he says, hey, I'm, your biggest champion with voice of customer. I talked to the CEO, I talked to the CTO about it. And then, they just go ahead with whatever prioritization they think makes sense, but it's usually wrong. And it usually frustrates the customer and it makes them wait so much longer. And it's honestly, frankly, costing us some sales opportunities. So we've tried to explain this to them. I think we're starting to make some headway. We did bring the CTO into one of the conversations. Previously, it had just been the VP of product. And we're starting to try to get the CEO to think differently. Is there anything, apart from like dollars, showing them like these are dollars that were lost because we didn't do this correctly? What is another way to help them think about this so that they start working on things and prioritizing things that customers and pilots or in conversations have said over what they just want to work on?
Yeah, I'm afraid to say dollars is really the answer, but it could be characterized as not just lost sales opportunities, but churn. And if that could be somehow accurately connected, so churn data over time, and if you're able to kind of validate with those clients that are leaving or have left, why they left, it becomes a lot easier to craft that argument why the voice of the customer should take more prominence. It seems like a no-brainer to all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing that people argue against it, and I've lived it. I've always been astonished at how much pushback there is on that, and so we've come back and said, well, we'll do the work. We'll gather the data. We'll talk to the customers. We'll talk to like cohorts of customers and crunch some information and do the surveys and all that stuff. And we have. But you're right. Too often, the product organizations will go back to their plan, and in their defense, their plan is dictated to them in a sense. They're told by the senior leadership team that this is what the company is going to do, and the heads of product are going to just put that in place through the plan for product development, and they have only a limited budget. So for them to be told through the year that the plan doesn't make sense because here's what the customers are saying, that requires them to give ground quite a bit. And I just feel like there's this tension that's always tight. And it's not a personality tension. What I mean by organizational tension that's really difficult. It really, at the end of the day, boils down to how serious is the C-level suite willing to stand behind the language of customer centricity. Every company says they think about the customer all the time. Most do not, because it doesn't show in the way they work together as organizations, and it doesn't show in the processes that they execute. And one of those is, frankly, that the VOC is not a high priority initiative, but it needs to be. And there's all kinds of examples in the marketplace that companies do take it seriously, and they are enjoying better business outcomes. And it's, again, I use that word, astonishing, that senior C-level executives still have this aversion, this allergic response, a reaction to considering that customers might have a good opinion about the products that should be paid attention to. It's just amazing to me. I'm afraid I don't have the best answer for you, but at the end of the day, it is about dollars. And sometimes the product people just are able to have a better argument than customer success has.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was kind of my thought. I mean, we've tried all kinds of avenues to try to like present it in a different way to get it to resonate more. I think finally we're making some traction, but yeah, that's what I thought. I'm just, I hate to have to do that, but I think I'm going to have to now throw some numbers at it.
And if it makes sense, I'll just find some industry research, like from Bain. People like Bain do a lot of like customer VOC kind of research, and others like Deloitte and people like that have good broad survey data that they put out there about the validity and the importance of listening to the customer.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Peter. I know we're like 7 minutes over here. If you have to go, that's totally fine. Do we have any more questions here?
It's in the chat. Is it all covered in the chat?
Yeah. People are being shy today. It's Wednesday. I don't know what's going on. Usually we have like a bunch of questions. I have a lot of questions about this, but I'm gonna continue poking on the book. If you don't have the book yet, I recommend that you get it because it's short, so you can get through very quickly. It's a good tool for you to have in your desk when you're struggling or when you have questions, when you don't know exactly what to do, or just to get out of your bubble. Sometimes as CSMs, we get into the bubble and we don't know how to solve problems outside. So I appreciate that you're all here because that's you getting out of the bubble and learning new things. I appreciate your time, Peter, and your kindness also. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find us on the Slack channel or the LinkedIn. I will post this video on YouTube later this week. I appreciate you all. We have more things coming for you all very soon. March and April, we have more sections. Yeah, Peter, anything you like to end?
Well, first of all, thank you, Priscilla, for inviting me onto this. I really admire what you're doing, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the audience. And thank you all for attending. I guess I want to just say, take heart in knowing that you have it within you to be a good person, obviously, but to be a good person in the application of it in business. And don't be frightened too much by the onslaught of AI. Think of it as a friend in a way. If you can think of it as a friend and a collaborator, I think that's where success will be for you. You'll see it more as an opportunity than something to be intimidated by. You shouldn't be intimidated by it, I think, because at the end of the day, I'm a believer that AI is going to benefit our world in a lot of different ways. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good advice. We should all remember that. And if you're not playing with AI yet, you got to start sooner than later because that's where we're headed. There's no going back. So,
For sure.
so yeah, thank you so much, Peter. I hope you all have a great Wednesday, rest of your day. I'll see you all soon on Slack and on LinkedIn.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you.